ladies and gentlemen, we welcome each and every one of you to the Economic Forum here at Wakia TV. Those who are interested in this program must come closer to your phone. We are live on Facebook across the world with our Honorable Professor Abbas Mohammed, who is here with us to dilate upon the part 2 of the State of the Nation, which was addressed by our President some few days ago. Last week, we dilated a little bit on it, and today we are going to continue from where we stopped. And we invite each and every one of you to be part of this program and to send in your messages. And when the time is due, we are going to read it for our Honorable Professor to dilate upon it. And those Muslim family who are in the holy month of Ramadan, we wish each and every one of you Ramadan Mubarak. I am your host, Sheikh RIDWAN Abdullah. With me is our Honorable Professor Abbas Mohammed in the United States of America, an economist who is here with us at this very time to talk about the part 2 of the State of the Nation's address. So without too much ado, we invite our professor to take over from me.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. To those of you who don't understand the Arabic dialect, it really means peace and the blessings of God be upon you all. Go ahead, sir.
For having me, and thank you to Walkia for the opportunity to have another interaction and engagement with the Ghanaian public. We have listened to the president, and we've also seen actions that have followed up as far as the national economic dialogue is concerned, something that we thought was necessary. So tonight, we're going to embark on a journey to unpack the state of our economy, critically looking at the president's recent promises and explore the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead as we strive for inclusive and sustainable growth.
Please, can you raise your voice a little bit up?
With the budget reading,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, with the budget reading tomorrow, this discussion is going to be timely and essential for understanding the path forward. As we stand early in 2025, Ghana's economy still presents a complex picture, marked by both some progress and persistent challenges. So I wanna break it down so we can understand what is it that we're dealing with. I know we've seen some real GDP growth at the beginning of towards the end of 2024 in the third quarter, as reported by Minister of Finance, and we still have some lingering backlash on unemployment, which stands at about 12%, and inflation about 23%. So the president has given us some hope and guidelines in his State of the Nation address, where he mentioned or outlined several key initiatives aimed at revitalizing the economy. One of them was the tax reforms that he mentioned, the proposed cancellation of certain taxes, including the controversial e-levy that aims to reduce the financial burden on citizens and to stimulate economic activity. This move will provide much needed relief for households and businesses alike. He also mentioned fiscal responsibility, where the president emphasized the need for fiscal responsibility and debt management laws to impose legal caps on borrowing and expenditure on the government side, which to me is critical toward restoring fiscal discipline and preventing excessive debt management. And in that same regard, we've seen their withdrawal in the financial sector as far as the T-bills are concerned, when the government has been able to reduce their participation in the treasury bill activity, where the rate has been significantly reduced, encouraging money to move into the private sector. So this is very critical. The third one that government had promised is the government efficiency, which they plan to streamline the government spending and reduce waste, which was highlighted by the Ministry of Finance in the way that they anticipate to bring discipline and enhancing efficiency within the public institutions. So the government aims to ensure resources that are utilized effectively for our national development. All right. In doing so, they also started engaging in the public because they wanted to engage an all-inclusive approach towards national development. So they actually took on some of the proposals that we had identified here when we started having this discussion about the national economic dialogue. And I feel that's a good start, but it still leaves a lot of room for improvement in the sense that the recent national economic dialogue was only held in Accra. It was meant to foster consensus on economic priorities, and the impact was largely confined to policymakers and experts, leaving out everyday citizens, some small businesses, and entrepreneurs. I know the argument is that the minister was also yesterday in the market interacting with the Makala women and trying to get the feelings on the ground, which is a good indicator of what this government is trying to do. But if you think about it beyond the shores of Accra, what have we done in collating or in starting this dialogue? And that is something that I feel we could do better because most of the programs usually begins in Accra, and we don't really see penetration in terms of the rural areas or other communities that are disadvantaged in the suburban areas where these discussions must also take place. So it's a good starting point, and I was lucky to also participate in a conference call. It was a dialogue that we had on the X platform by one of our OPCO mates. So I was able to listen to him there as well. So this is an indication of a government that's ready to listen. They're open to ideas. They're open to listen to our frustrations, which is actually how you measure the temperature in the economy. So there is a lot of promise in terms of the approach, but I think there's still a lot more to be done. So what are the challenges ahead? The Ghana's economic journey is is actually dealing with structural challenges that require urgent attention. So we have number one, the debt and financial constraint that we have, which is what the current administration is dealing with, where they are engaging in debt restructuring effort under the $3 billion 3-year IMF program that's established in 2023. The program imposes strict fiscal discipline measures, including limits on government spending and efforts to raise state revenue. So while it's necessary, these measures must be balanced with the need to stimulate growth and protect vulnerable population. So as we try to remobilize the funds and restructure some of these, obligations, the question is how do we, at the same time, engage and embark on these programs that are very, very costly? We have a $10 million infrastructure proposal that we have according to NDC. So if we have $10 million proposal, how we gonna achieve all of that given the bottlenecks that we have in terms of renegotiating these agreements with IMF and other institutions? So there's a lot of work to be done as far as trying to fund all these programs that we have. There's also a promise for 1 million jobs. How is that gonna happen if we are restructuring and we actually tightening our belts? We have to find alternative sources of funding. So, citizens, there's also an issue with the public trust and engagement. Like I said, until these programs are rolled down to the local communities, citizens are often going to remain having distrust government initiatives. They're not going to trust the process because of our past failures. Corruption, the lack of transparency, that's still lingering around. So, without a strong connection between policies and everyday life, public participation will remain low. So building trust requires consistent communication, accountability, and tangible results. So we need to have accountability framework that will ensure that we can show what we doing and how it translates to the life of people. Because if we stay in Accra or in the cities and implement some of these things and it doesn't get down to the local folks, it's not going to do us well. All right. So we have to, number one, strengthen institutions. Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Journalist as it used to be before. And these are things that I would like to ask our professor when we get you back. But I want you to be with us. He's back. Okay, so please continue.
Okay, you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
All right. So can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
All right. So as I said, the engagement still has an opportunity for us to be able to get to the local folks. So some of the ways we can inclusivity, innovation, and sustainability is to number one, strengthen our institutions, where we have to look at reforming the bureaucracy that we have in the system, improving efficiency in public service, and enforcing accountability measures, which are crucial for effective policy implementation. And like I mentioned the last time, we must also encourage collaboration between the government, businesses, and civil society that can drive economic growth and innovation. And civic education and mindset change remains something that I feel is necessary because if the people are not aligned with the bigger vision, we're not going to be able to educate them on economic policies, government roles, and individual contributions to national development, which is essential to fostering a proactive citizenry. Because it's only when the people are informed that they're going to be able to understand what is coming up, how they stand to gain from what the government is doing, which is why centraling everything in Accra is not going to do the job because people have to believe that we have enough resources and that if we work together, we can all benefit. And that if you get an opportunity, it's not an opportunity for you to amass wealth. but rather create an opportunity for the next person and yourself and everybody included for us to do all better. So we have to look at that. And in order to ensure consistency in policy and governance, I still stand with my proposal for us to have a structure in place that goes beyond the limit or the term that this administration has. Because if we do everything that this administration intends to do, at the end of the day, they only have 4 years. After 4 years, what do we have to ensure that everything that we started will be continuing, or everything that has started and is halfway can also actually see the end of the day where we can all benefit from it? So at the end of the day, it brings us back to the question of leadership and institution that will safeguard our future. So I still maintain that a National Economic Management Commission of some sort must be something we should look at, which is going to guide how we move forward. Not only would they guide how we manage our economic indicators, they're also going to be the ones advising on budgeting, taxation, and public spending, regulating the banking sector, and ensuring financial stability. So, my call again, over and over, is that we need an action, an economy that's not just growing on paper, but it felt on the life of ordinary Ghanaians. So, as we approach the budget reading tomorrow, I encourage us to demand policies that prioritize all of us included, sustainability and long term growth. All right.
That's
Together,
right.
we can build Ghana where every citizen benefits from our collective abundance. Because I believe it's only when we work together that we can all succeed. So if we need Ghana to grow, then we must all get involved and the opportunity must be presented to all of us. Because if you think back about the structure that we had prior to independence, we had a town council kind of approach. If I recall growing up, we have the Prempeh Assembly Hall.
That's
So
right.
these were where ideas were collated from individual citizens coming to the town hall meetings and expressing their desires or aspiration or frustration, whatever the case is. And we walked away from it. There were community centers. Now we don't have those structures. So how are we going to communicate to our leaders where some of our leaders don't even have offices that we can go to tell them what it is that is bothering us? If you look at nations that are doing well, like developed nations such as the USA, right now we're going through a tariff dilemma where Trump administration is trying to impose tariff on our neighboring countries and then China. But guess what? As soon as the impact started being felt in the economy, people rose and went to the town hall meetings where they met their congressmen and women and expressed their frustration, leading to the president pulling off on some of these activities. So that tells you that people matter. So we have to give people the opportunity to express their frustrations when something is not right. So until we have such a system or a structure in place, it's not gonna be all inclusive because some people will just sit in the name of being an opposition and not even participate in the democracy or in the development that we need. But we all have to understand that it's beyond one party. It's not an NDC problem. It's not an MPP problem. It's a Ghanaian problem.
That's
And if
right.
it's a Ghanaian problem and we need to solve it, then all of us must come together and then try to participate in the discussion. But we have to give people the opportunity to express themselves. So I'm still calling on a better dialogue that's more penetratable. This one is a good start, but it only stopped at Accra. What about the other areas? What about those areas that are hard to reach? All right. How many people are on the internet that can get on the social media like the X, like we did yesterday, to actually engage with the minister? And I applaud the minister for actually coming on the call and giving us some insight about what they thinking and how they trying to do things. And it's impressive for me as a Ghanaian.
That's right.
It's actually refreshing to see your minister coming at your level, but that's only few of us that can get on the internet. What about the people in the villages? What about those areas that don't have lights? Who's going to speak for them? So that's where I'm coming, where I said we should do a little more in reaching out to people to give them the opportunity to also express their frustration and whatever it is that's bothering them. So I will pause here and then we can have, a meaningful dialogue, because I feel it's the questions that will lead the discussion more than just me speaking all the time.
That's good. That's good. The program is well explained. The professor has some points. But last week, after our program, there were questions that was sent in. I wish you take some few minutes to address those questions before we go into today's concern. A brother called and asked, can the Women Bank help to alleviate poverty in the rural areas? And what can guarantee its longevity even if there is a change in government?
Can you ask the question again? I didn't get the first part.
Can the Women Bank
Women
help?
Bank. Okay.
Yeah. Can the Women Bank help to alleviate poverty in the rural areas? And what can guarantee its longevity even if there is a change in government?
The Women's Bank, I think, is critical. If you look at the percentage of women in the small to medium enterprises, I think that the percentage is very significant. Actually, I think the statistics show that we have more women in those areas than we have men. Therefore, any banking structure that we have to support and give them access to capital is going to be our way of sustainable economic growth. Because,
Okay.
and naturally, women are very good at managing finances that men can. Men would like to spend, women would like to manage it better. If you think about it, that's just a natural way women are created. So if
That's
we
right.
can get the women bank to be viable, which if you think about it, the way it works mostly in the advanced country is that some of these banks are actually funded by the state in terms of giving the bank access to capital so they
That's
can
right.
fund the SMEs. So Women Bank is going to play a critical role in terms of the rural outreach and the penetration that we need, because these are the farmers, these are the traders that we have. So if we can give them access to capital, which is supported by the national government, which is the state, in terms of giving them access to capital, whether it's loan at a reasonable interest rate, and then getting the funds flow to the women, then we have a future that's going to be very sustainable, because that's the way to go. We have to allow the women banks to function and be viable and be able to reach out to other women in the small scale enterprises. Those not in the formal sector must be brought in with incentive to actually be able to borrow and grow, because a woman can manage and grow a business in most cases even better than some of the men can do. So they play a very important role in ensuring that our growth is sustainable. But as far as continuity is concerned, that's why we need a economic management team that will cut across all tenure of political leadership. Because
That's
without that, we will ensure that the funds flow to these banks. So if we don't have a management team that's overseeing all these activities that we're going to implement, because NDC has very ambitious policies that they are trying to pursue. And my fear is not about what we do now. It's about what will happen when NDC is not here 4 years from now. What will happen to all those programs? Who will ensure that they are continuing? So that's where I have a problem with what
that's
the
a
way
concern.
our structure is.
Yeah, really, that's a concern of the questioner when he made mention of what can guarantee its longevity even if there is a change in government. And you made mention of the continuity. So, and I would like to ask, I would like to add it up by asking you, you know, last week you mentioned a 25-year economic blueprint for our economy. So, should we ensure continuity by adding this to the 25-year economic development plan?
Yes.
So that if there's going to be a change in government, we have to maintain the policy. The bank, the women's bank policy should be there, irrespective of who comes to government.
Yes, I think that's the key proposal. If you think about what I'm talking about, the development plan that we're gonna have, like NDC has something similar, from what I heard from Dr. Forson. They
Yeah.
have a medium to long term development agendas that they have, but that's only for NDC. What we need is more than just NDC. As a nation, we have to
Yeah.
agree that that's the only way we can ensure continuity for any program, not only the Women's Bank program,
That's
but
right.
any other program we're going to pursue. We need to be incorporated into what I call the blueprint. And for the blueprint to exist, we have to have a sanctioned, constitutional sanctioned organization or a commission that's going to oversee our national economic agenda. And that has to be in the constitution, that this commission is not going to go away with NDC. This commission is going to stand on its feet after NDC and will continue to ensure that everything that NDC is going to pursue that is good will be continued.
That's right.
So if it's the Women's Bank initiative or if it's the youth employment programs that we're gonna pursue, these are monies that's gonna be spent. That's my problem right now. We're gonna spend. We have a $10 million infrastructure that we want to pursue, and the whole budget is about $20 billion. $10 billion project. Sorry, the whole budget is about $20 billion that we want to pursue. So if we're going to put all this money in the economy, 4 years is not going to give us the necessary results. Neither can we achieve all these within 4 years. Therefore, there is a need for continuity.
That's
So
right.
if there is a need for continuity, we need a commission that will oversee past the life of NDC. And the only way we can achieve that is to propose some kind of constitutional uh, provision that allows this institution or commission or authority to exist regardless of NDC or MPP. So if we can have that commission to exist to do that, then we know for sure that now we are serious. Now, if NDC starts something and we halfway there, this commission will ensure that the next president will be advised about how we can move it, and then they have a reporting system that everyone will see. These are the projects that we've been able to implement. These are the projects that are yet to come, and this is where we are. And as Ghanaians, we press on you to advise whoever is your leader to look at these projects so we can continue going forward. And the reporting is open. So they're not reporting for the government, they're reporting to Ghanaians. Everybody can go and see what projects we pursue. So if we say we're going to connect the whole Ghana by road, this commission is ensuring that phase one is done, phase two is going to follow maybe in the next administration, phase three by 2025 or 2075, which is the 25 years, we would have achieved this much.
That's right.
And the only way we can do that is if we have a sanctioned, constitutionally sanctioned organization that will ensure that we live past NDC or MPP, whoever is in power. Otherwise, all these programs are short. Every 4 years, we recycle and we go back. That cannot get us anywhere.
We become stagnant. That's right. I hope, Brother Ibrahim from Tamale, your concern has been addressed by Professor, and I believe you are satisfied. And this actually is coming from me. I have some few minutes to ask my question before we give an opportunity to those who are sending their messages. Today we have a lot of messages here, but I would like to ask Mr. Prof. You made mention of unemployment 12% and inflation 23%. Now, my concern is what's the solution of the yearly unemployment graduates? What's the effect on the economy? Seeing that the unemployment rate is still ranging between 12 to 13%, and inflation goes by 23%. Even though we've cancelled this policy of e-levy, and then we are also not going to tie the North with the International Monetary Fund. So where do you think the source should be coming from? And how do we solve this problem of unemployment, the yearly unemployment graduates, which we have every year? We have the same problem: unemployment, graduate unemployment. Please address this issue for me.
All right. So in addressing those issues, we have to look at the fundamental reasons why we have graduate unemployment. It's the lack of opportunity. So what is happening is most of our employment, as it exists today, is coming from the state. So if the state is what is expected to hire all these talents, then the unemployment issue is going to linger for quite a bit. If we really need to address the unemployment, the number one thing that we have to do is to make sure that the private enterprise is able to grow, because your nation will only grow so well and absorb the people if your private sector is vibrant, meaning your private sector is able to, number one, access funds to grow. Number two, you also invest in the infrastructure that you have anticipated, which is the road infrastructure. You give businesses, the opportunity to do well in terms of access to the market, and then industrialization, privatizing, have a PPP kind of partnership where certain industries that are not doing well as a public entity is kind of going into a private sector partnership to allow efficiency. Because once the businesses started posting green instead of red, like the minister made us believe, then they have the opportunity to hire more people because they're showing profit. But as it stands right now, the same government that we want to employ all these graduates is having institutions that are not doing well. So where is the opportunity going to come from? The only way is to ensure that these institutions that are in red are pursuing a private public partnership in an approach to allow entrepreneurs come in, where entrepreneurs are able to turn those into profitable ventures, which will allow for graduates to be hired. So that will reduce the unemployment directly and indirectly by the growth of the business into a profitable venture will also create GDP growth. And the real GDP growth is also going to lead to reduced unemployment. So the whole thing is a ripple effect and they're all interconnected. So we would need to have a vibrant private sector where we allow private sector to thrive. Access to capitals, but I'm glad they're doing something on the financial sector where the government is withdrawing its participation into the lending market, where it allows the money now to go towards the private enterprise. But we still have a lot of work to do in terms of reducing interest rate so private businesses can access funds. Because it's only when the private businesses are able to grow that we see the youth getting into employment. All right. And then the second aspect is the direct micro solution that we have in terms of absorbing the youth unemployment through the youth employment agencies that we have. We have about three agencies now in this current administration that are directly taxed to ensure that the youth are employed, whether it's entrepreneurial, tech hubs, all these youth employment programs that we have. The youth must be able to access these resources. I was finding it hard to see how, localized these initiatives are, because it looks like they all centered in Accra still. But if we want to resolve this issue, then we have to make sure that they localize. Because if you look at the examples of advanced country, if you go to London, they have job centers. Job centers are local centers that you can simply get up and go. It's a resource in looking for a job. You don't have to go to Accra. Can we create something like that for youth employment programs that we have in Ghana? Can somebody just wake up, for example, in Nima and go to a Nima office and try to look for a job? All right. So we have to bring the jobs to the local doorsteps for the youth, because NDC has promised 1 million jobs. So how can we get that taken care of if the jobs are all centered in Accra or in the cities instead of the suburban areas and the local communities? Maybe we should leverage the district assemblies as having a representative or a table somewhere where youth would know where to go, because right now the agenda is not well communicated all the way to the bottom as to when somebody graduates where he needs to go. So there's a lot of work to do in terms of the communication and then the clarity of what the agenda is all about. I know it's early in the days, but I anticipate that a lot more clarity will come and people, the youth, will be able to identify where the opportunities are. But the key thing is the private enterprise needs to be vibrant. We have to open up the private enterprise and allow them to grow. That's the only way we can solve our youth unemployment.
Prof, I would like to chip in this quickly if you can address it for me before we. I mean, I have some few important questions to ask you. Then we go to those who have sent in their questions, their concern for you to address. And one thing I want you to make it clear to me and our listeners is, please, where do you draw the line between annual meet the press and the national economic dialogue that we're talking about? Because every year there is a policy in this country where the government meet the press and he selects the representatives of various radio stations and TV stations. Perhaps he even have in advance the question that are going to be asked. Now you made mention of national economic dialogue, which should be annual. I mean, I want you to draw the line between the two. Should the president give opportunity to all his representatives in all the various regions for people to come and bring out their grievances, their concern in order to, push it directly to the government? Or should we have it as it used to be, meet the press? So where do you draw the line between the national economic dialogue and annual meet the press by the president every year?
All right, I think they're both necessary because they serve different, audience, right? If
That's
you
right.
do meet the press, you serving the affluent, audience, people that
Okay.
can read, people that have access to internet, people that have access to radios and stuff like that. But if you send your representative to have town hall meetings, which is my preferred way of listening to your people, the reason why I say that's more preferred to me is the fact that when we were campaigning to win elections, we went as far as meeting them in their local communities
That's
to
right.
tell them and make a case as to why they should vote for us. So now that we have the power, I don't think it's just right for us to stay in Accra and have all these fancy dialogues when the people that are actually suffering are those in the local areas. So if we can have our local representatives, whether it's the regional minister, to actually have a town hall meeting or local district or whatever heads that we have that can actually engage the public on behalf of the government for them to actually hear them with the frustrations. Because somebody voted for you with the hope that you'll be able to change the course of their lives. All right. And now you up there and you're not connected as far as the feeling is concerned. You want to hear them because that sticks with the leaders as to where the frustration is. You will remember I went to this town and this old woman got on the speaker and told me what is bothering her. Her grandkids cannot be fed. She cannot pay, her grandson's school fees or stuff like that. That will stay with you longer than anything you can hear in Accra.
That's right.
So those are the stories, those are the moments I want the leaders to take with them when they're designing these policies and pursuing certain actions. Because we always have to understand that behind any policy, economics that we're going to talk about is human lives. And these people have voices, and we have to listen to these voices. So if we really, really want to get this going in the right way, where it's meaningful to everyone, then we should come to their level. Doing a press conference, all of that is fine. All right. That's for the affluent. We do that all day. There are radio stations, there is TVs, there is social media, there's all of that. That's fine. But what about those people who are in the villages that cannot afford 1 square meal? Do you want to hear the story of how she goes about her day, her daily lives? Maybe that will trigger something in you, because that's where the change will happen. All right. Like I said, it's more powerful than anything you can think of. Because
That's
when
right.
when the Trump administration started this tariff thing, if the town halls were not what it was, he wouldn't have stopped and start thinking again. Now he's
That's right.
rethinking some of the decisions simply because in the town halls, the women got out and expressed their frustration about the increasing prices in the system, the inflation in the American system. They express their frustration, and he has to listen. All right. Those are the moments that we need. That's what connects the president and his citizens.
We have to adjust the time because I'm beginning to enjoy the program, but time is not on our side. And personally, I'm convinced with the answer that you're bringing out. And I hope if the politicians are listening to this voice, perhaps their work will be a little bit lesser, less harder, because Prof is giving us a solution to the predicament we are facing as a nation. And we need a solution. And I believe from my heart that if all of us should listen to his voice, I believe as politicians, our work will be less harder. But I want to chip in this before we bring in questions that are sent to us for us to address upon. Mr. Prof, please, I want you to address this for me. What are the most effective strategies to improve physical discipline and manage debt, especially given the state, given the stored infrastructure projects and significant debt services obligations?
All right. The critical step is identifying what the priorities are, because physical discipline includes, managing limited resources, which is efficiently. Because as you can see, money is going to be tight. All right. We renegotiating IMF agreements, we restructuring our debt. So money is not going to be that easy. And the alternative sources will take time before it starts flowing. So in the meantime, what we have to do is to prioritize, because anytime you have a constraint on your budget or money, the first thing you have to do is to prioritize. So on a scale of preference, which one do we think will get us there? And the last time I made mention of pursuing multiply effect projects, things that would trickle down to the people rather quickly are some of the priorities, like pursuing agriculture. So if we pursue some of these activities, it allows us to be able to reduce the burden of inflation on us. All right. So we begin to feed ourselves. So we have to prioritize, and then we have to make sure that we have accountability framework. So once you prioritize, you have to be accountable for your actions. If we say we're going to spend on this project A or B, we have to ensure that there is a system in place where these projects are actually monitored and ensuring that we have our return on investment. So accountability framework needs to be very clear. Who is in charge? Who is gonna ensure that we have return on our investment? I know the president is very clear about that. So that means corruption, zero tolerance of corruption must be something we should pursue. And people are, he has to show that he means that by ensuring that people are prosecuted in a timely fashion when they found guilty of any form of corruption. All right. So that would ensure financial discipline. I know he said himself as an example by declaring his assets. These are all good things to start the conversation about ensuring that what we said we're going to do is going to give us the reward that we needed, because the money is going to be tight. And we have to ensure that we have, serious discipline about that. And then we have to have, in terms of revenue and collection of revenue, we have to have better systems. And then we have to clarify and simplify our tax codes. These are all ways of cleaning up the garbage in the system, the waste, so we can get the money in the taxes that are coming into the right places in order to fund these projects that we have identified as key priorities.
Yeah, Mr. Prof, please, there is a question that is sent by one of our listeners, and before we allow our brother to read it, I want to briefly, when you assess the policy of this country since the inception of the new government, by inviting Ibrahim Traore to come to Ghana, can you tell me clearly that Ghana is in the value of decision? Is Ghana leaning towards the east, towards Russia, or maintaining the relationship they have with the West?
I think it's strategic relationship. You have to, the politics, of the world politics needs to be played very carefully, right? We have to place ourselves in a way that we also have our interests at heart at all times when we're negotiating, whether with the West or with the East, which is Russia. As you can see right now, if you look at the world trend in terms of the world dynamics and the politics, everybody is looking for their interests first.
That's right. That's right.
So if we're gonna pursue the West agreement, right now we have to look at what is in it for us. Where do we stand to gain? Is it with the West? Because there are things that the West might relationship with the West that will favor us in terms of the opportunities we need to grow, or maybe the East in terms of the opportunities that Russia can present us. So we have to find a balance as to which one serves us better. But again, it depends on what our goals are. If
That's
our
right.
goals is economic recovery, accelerated growth, then we should find partners that will meet us in negotiating these goals. Like I said the last time, we've played the Western game for quite some time with IMF and World Bank. All right. So if you look at the things that we've been able to achieve under that relationship, and then we look at what the East is willing to give us, then you could actually define which way is a way to better serve you. But like I said, it has to be a conscious effort and deliberation of a strategy where we can take we get the most out of any relationship we pursue. The old times of doing things the same way is not going to work. So we've been with the West for some time. If we feel that it's not serving us well, which is where I am, I feel like we can redo these negotiations, or maybe we should look at some alternatives. If the East is the alternative, then let's go for it. We must be bold in ensuring that our interest is the number one interest on the table.
MashaAllah. Thank you very much, Mr. Prof. And there are a lot of questions today, because time is not on our side. I will plead those who are listening, please share the message. Share it to your friends, share it to your neighbors, share it to your colleagues. Let it reach out to all the politicians, because this is a very important program for the development of the economy in this country. And I would like to give the opportunity to our brother to read a message that was sent to us by one of our listeners, who is called Yusuf. Abdulhamid. So please go ahead and read it.
Yeah, there's a question from Yusuf Abdulhamid, a unit committee member from the Dukrum electoral area.
Raise your voice, please.
Yeah, he was asking a question regarding the power crisis. He said, regarding the power crisis confronting us as a nation, and undoubtedly, power propels about 100% of businesses across the globe, which means it is very essential in economic building of every nation. As an economist, what do you suggest the government must do in bringing down this menace, and going forward, what mechanisms should be put in place in sustaining the sector to avoid future interferences?
I think when it comes to energy, it's just like all the other aspect of the economy. I think we need to be very, very, deliberate in solving this problem once and for all. All right. In the long term, what we have to look at is alternative sources of energy. We have abundant sunlight in Ghana. But the question I ask is, how many solar farms do we have? All right. As I travel through Texas, it's very sunny over here. And you could see our energy is all internally generated simply
That's right.
because simply because they've been able to establish farms, wind, all sorts of energy within the same state. When you travel, you see spans of solar energy, farms where energy is generated, and we have abundant sunlight in Ghana, but we haven't been able to actually invest in it. These are long-term solutions. The short-term solutions are what you see every day, the hydroelectric power and all the other thermal plants and stuff like that. Those are short-term. But long-term, we have to have, I know they have an energy crisis forum that they have going on that they trying to figure out. But that's where we need to go. We need to have a long-term approach where we have serious alternative energy sources that we can create to solve this problem once and for all. Because there's no reason why a country the size of Ghana cannot actually have an energy that's sufficient for all of us. It's really, really disappointing. And that's just an indication of a country that's not ready to actually solve their problem. And I think NDC is telling us that they're here to solve that. So let's
That's
hope
right.
that we can have this dialogue around what are the alternatives. There's a lot of alternatives that we can look at, and one of them is leveraging what God has given us. We have an abundant sun that we can leverage to make sure that all these solar panels technology, all these institutions needs to be aligned to ensure that we can take advantage of what God has given us in terms of finding long-lasting solutions rather than dealing with the ad hoc policies here and there.
Personally, I really have enjoyed the program, and I'm also educated. But I'd like to ask our technician here, Yusuf, please make a comment about what you heard from our professor.
Alhamdulillah, I think it's a very insightful program, and if our leaders are listening and they are watching, everything Professor Abbas has been saying is key policy, and also something that can be put in place to ensure the betterment and development of Ghana as a whole.
Thank you very much briefly. And I will also plead to our listeners, please share the program. I want you to share it as many as possible because this is a very important program for us to get informed, you know. But before we bring the curtains down, I would like to ask our professor to use the Hausa language to summarize what we have said in the Hausa dialect for the benefit of our people who don't understand the English language. Please, Professor, go ahead and talk to our fathers, our mothers, who has not, have the opportunity to understand the 1 hour program that we have done here. Please talk to them in our local dialect briefly and summarize it for them, please.
Assalamu alaikum, barkanmu da yau, barkanmu da waraka, barkanmu da shan ruwa. To, kamar yadda muka saba har yanzu dai muna tattaunawa, mun tattauna kan abin nan tattalin arzikin garin, sannan kuma ababen da muka ji shugaba da mataimakin shi na economics ke fadi, wato ministan finance. wanda shi kuma yake tattaunawa da jama'a. Jiya yana kasuwa, sannan kuma ya zo kan abin nan Twitter mu da shi mun samu ganawa. To har yanzu dai shawaran da kenan ne shine yanda za a yi ya zama abin da za mu yi nan ya amfana da mu duka, kuma a ba mutane dama. Ni har yanzu na kan a ba mutane dama su ma su fadi na bakin su da damuwansu. So abin da akwai alaman shi wannan gwamnati yana da niyya mai kyau, da fatan Allah zai taimake shi ya yi kamuna ci gaba. Amma sannan mu kuma namu ne mu nemi daman fadin abin da ke zuciyarmu, ko kai MPP ne ko kai NDC ne, mu nemi a ba mu dama mu ma mu fadi namu, saboda mu ma mu tofa abin da zai kama na amfani gaba daya. To har yanzu dai kai muke da fatan cewa daman ya samu insha Allah.
To masha Allah, wa alaikum salam, da Allah ku yi kokari ku tuttura ma ƴan uwanku wannan sakon, saboda kowa ya samu amfana, saboda ka muna cikin lokacin azumi ba kowa bane zai samu damar sauraron mu ba. Amma insha Allah idan ka tura message din, to bayan an gama shan ruwa ma zai iya karantawa, kuma zai iya je ya fara kallon tun daga farko a karshe. Shi sa bayan da muke kenan jama'a taimaka mana a yi share wannan sakon an ba yadda. Shi sa in Allah ya samu ga wannan program na yau, sabon sati ba za ku ji mu ba saboda za mu dan sarara kaɗan, amma insha Allah kila wani satin karshe kamar ai sallah za mu dawo. Idan ba mu iya dawowa ba, to da an gama sallah wannan sati na sallah za mu ci gaba da inda muka tsaya. Kuma muna muku fata alkhairi, muna muku addu'a, kuma ubangiji Allah ya karbi wannan azumi da muke yi. Duk bukatun mu Allah ya biya mana, duk laifuffukan mu ubangiji Allah ya mana gafara, ubangiji Allah ya aita mu daga wuta zuwa aljanna. Wannan gidan talabishin mai albarka ubangiji Allah ya kara mai ɗaukaka. Shi da Allah idan kuka yi sallah ku ka tana da mu ma ku samu cikin addu'a. Muna muku sallama ta addinin musulunci. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.